Making maple syrup at home is easier than you might think, even outside the traditional Northeast. Here in Missouri, we can make our own syrup from just a few trees, along with a tasty alternative that's even easier. In this video, we're going to show you an overview of the process and share some tips from our experience. Maple sap starts running in late winter or early spring. The best conditions occur when days are above freezing and nights below freezing. A forecast like this will encourage sap flow, whereas a forecast like this is too warm and will suppress sap flow. We use simple taps and collection buckets, which are large enough for all but the highest daily flows. For context, a full bucket here represents about a half pint of finished syrup, so just 1 or 2 trees can be enough at a home scale when the sap runs for many days. If you don't have enough maples, consider tapping a black walnut tree as well. They're generally less productive and their sap isn't as sweet, but it does add a complex, interesting flavor to your maple syrup. Our trees are near enough to home that we simply collect the sap in tubs and carry it back. The sap needs to be filtered to remove insects and other debris. We used to filter with cheesecloth, but this is awkward and hard to clean for reuse. It's much easier to use a funnel and filter system meant for homestead dairying. These are strong, effective, and easy to rinse for reuse over multiple days. Storage can become a challenge when each tree is producing several gallons per day. We keep an old fridge in our basement for storing garden and orchard harvests, which is conveniently free during maple season. When possible, we prefer to boil down sap in a roasting pan over an open fire, which produces high heat but no fuss in the house. This is compatible with doing nearby yard or garden work, as you need to keep an eye on it, but not obsessively so. We also find that the inevitable ash that blows in actually gives the final syrup a nice smoky hint. At our scale, this can be done about once a week. Save up scrap wood and dead branches for use in boiling down sap outdoors. This is more sustainable than using propane and more efficient than using stove-grade firewood. Ideally, this would be a hot-burning species like cedar or ash. You can also boil down sap indoors using a wood stove rather than a kitchen range if at all possible. This can be a useful strategy when unsuitable weather disrupts outdoor boiling. Here in Missouri, our maple season weather can easily range from highs in the 70s to lows in the teens, making sap production irregular and boiling conditions unpredictable. It's normal to collect sap daily, so if storage is limited or weather prevents timely outdoor boiling, consider cooking the new stuff partway down every evening. This is especially energy efficient on a wood stove. Even a partial reduction will save you space and stabilize the sap for longer storage. Raw sap won't last longer than a week. Heating too much liquid at once wastes energy and increases your chances of a messy boilover. It's the surface area that controls reduction, not the volume, so use multiple pans if possible and add small amounts of fresh sap regularly. Once the sap approaches syrup status, getting thicker, it can scorch easily over an open fire. Finish it on a stovetop where you have full control, using a thermometer to check for the proper 219 to 220 degrees. Although you can use a handheld thermometer for this, a digital alarm thermometer, like this one from ThermoWorks, can be set to go off at specific high or low temperatures, which is far more convenient for monitoring syrup status. These are also useful for all sorts of other kitchen applications. You don't have to reduce sap all the way to syrup to produce a useful result. Sap that's been boiled down only about halfway still has the texture of water, but develops a sweet maple flavor. This doesn't require any fussy finishing, but can be drunk as is or frozen for a refreshing maple drink in the heat of the summer. This can be the plan from the beginning, a way to salvage lower than expected sap flows, or a way to deal with unexpected time constraints. Finished syrup should be refiltered to remove impurities, which can be tedious. We used to use coffee filters for this, but they clogged easily and lost a lot of sugar. Now we use the same dairy filters as for raw sap, which also fit nicely into a 2-part funnel like this. This setup is stable and safe, which is important since syrup filters best when hot. Stirring within the funnel can be very effective at keeping filtration going. Finished syrup is relatively thick and slow moving. Doing a first filtering shortly before reaching the final stage will make the last filtering much easier. This is especially true for syrup cooked down over an open fire. Washing up after a batch of syrup making is also tedious, and best done as soon as possible before the sugar residues crystallize and become harder to remove from everything. But why send that hard-earned sugar down the drain? Before washing your pans and filters, run some warm water through them and collect it. This will dissolve much of the remaining maple sugar, producing a tasty drink and an immediate reward for your work. Commercial maple syrup is shelf-stable, but it's harder to be certain of the finishing point in a home kitchen. Just to be safe, we pack our syrup into glass jars and store them in the freezer, where they remain stable until needed. Syrup is dense and doesn't take up much space, especially given its value. Any maple drink you made can also be frozen here. You can repeat this process for as long as the sap flows, or until you're tired of dealing with it. Now you've got homemade maple syrup that you can share with friends and family. Or not.